Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to a unusual Saturday night edition here of Grinders Live. Calling this the Daily Fantasy Roundtable, where we're bringing a bunch of our hosts together and some others outside of RG, and maybe for the next hour or so, just kind of talk a little bit about the state of affairs that Daily Fantasy is in. I obviously have, quite a platform with the podcast and Sirius, so I've been able to talk a lot about it, but I know a lot of our guys are going to be affected by this and already are being affected by this, and felt like, you know what, they deserve a platform themselves to kind of talk about a lot of the issues that are going on and what we need to do moving forward. And we still got more people hopefully going to join in on this hangout here over the next hour or so. So we've reached out to quite a few people and love to hopefully have as many as we possibly can who can add some meaningful thought and discussion here to the conversation to it. And again, I'm Dan Bach. We've got Hoop, Mike 24 or Hoop 2410. I almost called you Mike 2410.
Hey, it works. I've been called a lot worse.
Justin, STL Cardinals 84 out there in Illinois, and of course Dean Shavelson representing Vegas. And let's get started with the worst thing that's happened to this point, and that's Dean. You, Las Vegas, no longer in daily fantasy can you play it out there in your state. I mean, what was that like going through, and kind of like, what are you going to do? I mean, a lot of people have asked me, a lot of people are probably asking you, what's the plan moving forward? Talk us through it a little bit and kind of like your feelings about what took place, because I'm sure, actually, I know you were surprised when somebody pinged you on Skype and said you can't play anymore.
Yeah, I am the DFS mush. I'm the new fantasy nomad because I'm coming from Florida, and Florida obviously is in murky water at best, I suppose. Now we're in Nevada, and just like seeing the headline that Nevada bans gambling, it's like, well, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. And then obviously if you dig into it, you figure it out. It's like, oh wait, Sheldon Adelson casinos, they want to protect their best interests, obviously. And a lot of it is they want to taste. They want their. We all know the hook as far as Nevada. Nevada's like, yeah, sure, you can play daily fantasy here if you want to, but you have to be licensed. But of course, if you're licensed, you have to be gambling, and we're not so sure if the sites are ready to be on team gambling, because okay, that'll work in one state, but the 49 others maybe not so much. So risk versus reward. So I'm out here in Nevada, and I don't like my chances of things getting any better. We'll see. Hopefully. But, yeah, if you guys say one bad word about me, I will threaten to move to your state, and I'm going to ruin things for you next. So
yeah, I promise to not say one bad word about you as long as you give us the inside information of where Dean is heading next.
Yes, I am the Carmen Sandiego of DFS. I gave myself like 4 nicknames in a row. That's just the way it's going to be. It's funny, I got to say, awesome guys in the community, several people. Pepsi, for one, is like, dude, come to Canada, hang out with me. I got a spare bedroom.
Eat butter tarts all day, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As if I'm not fat enough. Like, yeah, let's give him some butter tarts. So, look, awesome dude. Pepsi, Brit's like, yeah, come crash at me in New York or so. For, like, everybody makes sure to say, for a short period of time, because you don't want to overstay your welcome, obviously. Dude, it's been like 3 months. Come on.
Yeah. Justin and I would offer up some rooms, but I don't think you really want to have to deal with.
Yeah, nobody wants to come live with me right now either.
Yeah, we're all like on the clock right now, aren't we? None of us are in a safe zone.
Yeah, it appears to be that way, unfortunately.
Look, I'm concerned. I don't know what I'm doing next. I'm gonna figure this out. Thankfully, I have some money saved up. I didn't. There was no pajama jammy jam. I wasn't making it rain in the local strip clubs of any sort. I have somewhat of a bankroll where I can survive for a couple months and figure things out. And look, I love this industry. I found it 3-4 years ago. I've been playing DFS like 98% of the nights ever since I discovered it. And I'm concerned. I'm scared. I don't want to make people panic. I feel like we're going to come out of this. I hope we're going to come out of this. There's a lot of things that needed to be cleaned up. And hopefully we'll clean them up, and hopefully we'll make the game better eventually. But this is certainly a rough patch, I would say.
What do you think about? We talked about whether, or we even talked about it, but somebody mentioned, Dean, I think you did, about licensing. Like, you can play, daily fantasy operators can have the games there, but people, the sites would have to pay a license. I heard that Fantasy Aces is actually going to try and get the license out there in Nevada. What do you guys think about other sites doing that? Do you think that's not a wise decision? Do you think that leads to, them categorizing themselves as gambling, which would obviously give a bad taste in a lot of other states' mouths? What's your thoughts on whether or not that should be pursued by the sites? Mike?
Yeah, I'll start here. I think the main theme here is when you see states or you see big industries not getting their cut in this booming industry that is DFS, people want their cut. And I think a lot of this that we're seeing right now is a push from the casino industry. I might be wrong, but from what I see, it's the states that have a large casino presence that have huge influence on these gaming boards, and they're convincing these gaming boards, the attorney generals, to take a look at this. And the question you raised there, I think it's a huge issue. You're gonna see this in the states where the casinos are prevalent. There's a lot of casinos. I know in Michigan there's a lot of casinos. In Illinois, obviously, Nevada. So people want their cut, and with Florida and Nevada, without having the state income tax, it just kind of makes sense for them to say, hey, we're not seeing the effects of this big DFS boom. Give us ours, or we're going to look deeper into this.
I just want to step in. I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to clarify that thing about Aces. I saw that as well, and I got excited. I'm like, oh, wow, Fantasy Aces. That's my favorite site forever. Thank you. But Trent, one of the owners of Fantasy Aces, basically clarified in the forums, they didn't necessarily say they're in the process of getting one. They're just sort of researching the idea of it, basically. So
okay.
I wouldn't get too excited about it just yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fallout from that in terms of live finals coming up here in the next couple weeks or next couple months for FanDuel and DraftKings. And, I mean, I don't know. Just think how much impact financially is lost by them doing this. I mean, think about it for a second. In terms of the casinos themselves, do they really think they're going to actually get more people going to their casinos by taking daily fantasy away? I mean, for me, you're looking at upwards of at least a half a dozen. I think maybe upwards of maybe 10 events a year, fantasy related in Vegas, which isn't happening. And yeah, maybe the event itself isn't that much, but believe me, you bring Love's Bases to Vegas, suddenly there's definitely a lot of gambling going on in terms of at the tables, at the blackjack, playing the horrible, what is it, the double deuces or whatever the hell they're called.
Perfect pair.
Perfect pair, yeah, the sucker bet of all sucker bets. But there's a lot of, high rollers that you could say in daily fantasy who now they're obviously not going to go for that reason, but they're not going to go to Vegas anyway if they can't play what's, their bread and butter. I think that it's a big mistake on a lot of levels.
Yeah, I think it's a two-part thing. I think they really do think that the average person has a certain amount of money set aside that they're willing to use on gaming, I guess you could say, whether it's DFS or whatever somebody does, and they want to funnel as much of that to the casinos. And, that's the first part. And the second part, I think these sites are coming up with or these casinos, I think, are going to start coming up with DFS products. They really think they're going to get people in casinos to play DFS, and I'm sorry, I just don't think that's the case whatsoever. I just don't see DFS players all of a sudden packing their stuff up and heading down to the local casino to play DFS. Might be wrong, but I just don't see it happening.
I have a confession to make, and I feel dirty. I feel like I crossed the picket line. Mike asked me before the show started, so Dean, what are you going to do now? And I legally wager on hockey tonight. So you win, Sheldon Adelson. You win, casinos. I talked to Pepsi like about a half hour before lineup block. We had to have a quick conversation. I'm like, hey, Pepsi, who's going to win in hockey tonight? And I bet on the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm a horrible person. I'll never do it again. I won't cross the picket line once more, but I feel dirty.
Yeah, that's what they're hoping for, Dean. You're falling right into the trap.
I know. Come on, you're playing right into their hands, Dean.
I know. What do you want? Well, with my winning money, though,
you're not helping the cause. Jeez.
I think an important point with the whole licensing thing is it may seem like small potatoes, but I think if DFS wants to stay on the right track, it's going to take a united effort from the sites. And I know they haven't always had the best relationship amongst each other in the past, but if if sites are doing different things with in this Nevada licensing thing, if Aces happens to go for it as just one example, it's not going to change the perception that this is the wild, wild west or whatever some of the politicians have come out and said. So, I mean, I think it's a slippery slope if one or two of the sites decides to start going on a different way with something like this, just because it doesn't feed the perception, that everybody's on the same page, and that's kind of my only worry about something like that.
All right, I'm gonna put Mike and Justin on the spot here, because Dean, you're already in a place you can't play. Let's say things don't go well the next 2 weeks, and you can't play daily fantasy in Illinois or Michigan. What do you guys do?
Go ahead,
Justin.
Justin.
I mean, right now, I wouldn't do anything. I mean, I'm not gonna. Heck, I've only lived in my current house for 8 months, so I guess close to a year now. But it's not like I'm just gonna pack up and move, because nothing is set in stone. I mean, I could move to Wisconsin, and then who knows? 6 months down the road, maybe we can't play in Wisconsin, or maybe things change. It's so unsettled right now that I would probably just stay the course. And if I had to be honest, knowing the politics in Illinois like I do, and some people that I've talked to, I'd say I've got a 50-50 shot of being able to play in a week. And 3 months from now, I mean, if I had to guess right now, I'd say 10% chance that we can still play DFS in Illinois in 3 months. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I don't get the sense that the politicians in Illinois are going to go for it, and they'll just piggyback right off the Nevada. The gaming board has already sent out an opinion that they think it's illegal, piggybacking off of the Nevada statement the other day. Now, the Illinois gaming board doesn't have the authority to act on that, so they've asked the Attorney General for clarification. But I can go play the slot machines at a gas station a mile from my house. Illinois has regulated gambling, or slot machines and video gaming all across the state, and you have to be licensed, and it's just that sort of thing is going to make them want to shut out DFS, and I really think that the near-term outlook in Illinois is very bleak, and I hope I'm wrong. I totally hope I'm wrong, but that doesn't sound good right now.
Yeah, and for me, I think Dan and I are probably in pretty similar situations. DFS is, obviously I left my career as an accountant a year and a half ago to primarily focus on DFS. So as it stands right now, my family as a whole is 100% dependent on the DFS industry, and Dan's essentially in the same boat as I am. If things go sour for us, it's on to Plan B. And I'd be lying if I didn't tell you guys for the past week I haven't been thinking about Plan B. It'd just be foolish to not think like that. It's a tough situation. I'm 100% invested in this industry, and if it came a day where I couldn't play DFS, I'd be fine in the short term, don't get me wrong, but long term, at this point, I don't know what I would do. I think moving to another state, I think, would be foolish. Once we see a state like Illinois fall, once we see if a state like Illinois were to fall, if a state like Florida were to fall, I just don't think the long-term prospects on DFS would be promising as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem too, is because, like you say, especially guys like you and me, we've got family, we've got property. There's to just uproot and move is something that you just can't do. Now, if you're 22 and you're Bryce and you're in college in Indiana and things don't go well there, you pick up and you move to Boston, which their Attorney General just said you can. Daily fantasy is perfectly legal here in this state. So I think that in our situations, you just have to be extra careful, because even if, like you talked about, Justin, even if it doesn't go well and it looks like it's going to be fine somewhere else, who knows how long that's going to last? And I think ultimately, I think we all agree regulation is got to happen. It's going to happen. But isn't it to the point in time where, like, FanDuel, DraftKings, all these daily fantasy sites have to get together and just figure out how they're going to do it? And lo and behold, we have David Kitchen with us as well. Soccer Dave, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
We hear you. We see you.
Loud and clear.
What's up, guys?
Not much.
Yeah, you know.
Good to have Soccer Dave, of course, Fantasy Insiders. And, again, he's going to be added into this conversation. We got some more people lined up as well. But let me just get back to that quick question is, how does regulation take form here? Because, honestly, I think the only way to stop this whole domino effect, I guess, we're having at this moment, potentially, could be to have national regulation. But that's something that just doesn't happen overnight, Mike. I mean, that's a long process.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is, and regulation has been a scary word in the DFS industry for quite some time now. But how quickly roles have reversed, where I think most of us are basically hoping for regulation and any form of regulation at this point. And just to add on to kind of what I had said earlier, if you're in a state right now that there's no question marks and you think you're good to go, I wouldn't feel so cozy because, like I mentioned, if some of these bigger states eventually fall, I think the overall prospect for DFS is looking bleak, and I think it's going to take everybody right now. The sites need to get on the same page. The players need to get on the same page, whether you live in California or Michigan or Illinois, Florida, Tennessee, wherever you may be. It's everybody, I think, has a lot to lose at this point.
Dean, you made a very good post on Twitter this morning, and it resonated a little bit with me. You said you saw somebody that said, as long as New York is good, then I'm fine. And it's not – we're at the point where you really can't take that approach because it's so short-sighted. And, when I posted yesterday, I mean, I was very pleased to see the response that I got from people when I said, reach out to the Attorney General of the state of Illinois because – look, if you write a letter that might help me in Illinois, I'm more likely to write a letter that might help you in Michigan or Pennsylvania or Florida or whatever the case may be. And, more communication certainly doesn't hurt because a lot of these powers that be and politicians don't have a clue about DFS. I mean, you see some of the comments that Harry Reid has made, and it's just it's mind-numbing how much people don't know, and that only hurts our cause in the long run.
Harry Reid's talking about fake players and fake games.
And fake games, yeah.
My favorite video ever.
That comment just pissed me off. Like, I'm generally pretty low-key, but somebody pretty much said, as long as New York is good, I'm good. Well, guess what? If every other state is banned, who are you going to play? How about that?
Yeah.
There's so many different ways to look at it, but it's short-sighted. And it's selfish, by the way. You're being a dick. But that's a whole other conversation.
But that points out the importance of people actually reaching out to these politicians because this is something they're not familiar with. I mean, they've seen the ads obviously this year, and they saw the one big story, and that's going to be the extent of their research basically on the industry. And unfortunately for us, these are the people that will be making the decisions for this industry moving forward.
Yeah, it's tough. Dave, you just kind of jumped in. Hopefully your daughter went to sleep well. What's your take on this? Well, what's your take on this whole thing? I mean, you're somebody who is very invested in DFS, probably more than you even expected, obviously way more than you expected when you first started. And now you've got it as a career on a lot of fronts, supporting your family with it. Both as a content producer at Insiders, a DK analyst, and as a player. I mean, you've got as much to lose as anybody else as well. I mean, kind of give us your thoughts and any frustrations that you're kind of seeing here a little bit.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. Second of all, sorry about my grungy appearance. I was going to shower, but then when I heard that DB was going to be on air, I was like, no, don't worry about it.
I thought you just meant the Cubs hat.
Oh, somewhat.
I can't talk smack right now. Carry on.
Yeah, you're not really in a position to. As far as my thoughts just on how everything are, it's been, I mean, to be honest, it's been kind of a whirlwind as it's been for a lot of people, and I am heavily invested into this as much as anybody can be. I decided to go full time into daily fantasy. I basically have played for a year while supporting my or helping to support my family, and now I'm getting income mostly off of the business side of things and playing. But this fall, like having to play or playing as much as I could to support the family. So I have income coming in 3 different ways, and without daily fantasy or with a severely handicapped daily fantasy, I mean, this is a huge thing for me and my family. About to have a second child, and so a lot of people, of course, when they start looking at the what it is and people just wanting to get it shut down, they don't recognize the personal side of things. That's why I really thought what STL did with the letter and really personalizing it and let them know, like, listen, this isn't just people playing for $5 or $10. Like, there are jobs in the line. There are people that are heavily invested in this, and these are like not degenerate. We always like joke about the word degenerate, but these are not degenerate people. These are people that actually like contribute to society. So it was the biggest frustration I've had is that I've always thought that DFS could kind of control the narrative as far as its skill, yada yada yada, and all it took was one little mishap to basically let the gaming commission take hold, let all these people that want to get sports betting legalized, and this was like their inch, and they took a mile with it. And the frustrating part for me is that as an industry, the people that were the most heavily invested, like, we couldn't control that narrative, and that's why I really enjoyed these news sites about the industry. I first started fantasysports.org before I started Fantasy Insiders, and the goal of it was to be a news site. I wanted to be able to contribute to let people know what's happening in the news industry. I sold that before it could ever like become a thing. But when I saw these other sites doing it, I was like, no, this is really cool. You get to see who has funding, different sponsorships. Well, about 2 weeks ago, whenever Jason Robbins and Seth Young were at a gaming commission, I saw kind of that narrative start to switch. And the Legal Sports Report and some other blogs, that people need to understand these are independent blogs, and they have taken the stance of wanting to be an opinionated blog. And so what that has caused is it's given the mass media, they just take this as fact, and they run with it. And they spin it however they want, and they don't. It's been interesting, to say the least, to see how the credibility of journalism now is not what it used to be. So that would probably be my biggest frustration, is that this seems kind of a little bit out of our control. I'm happy,
especially now, though. I mean, I think it was in our control. I think everybody can assume some responsibility for not getting in front of that, whether it's the sites themselves, whether it's the forums on RG, everybody probably looked at what this started the whole thing, and I don't want to say underestimated it, but I guess you could say that. And once that narrative got built and it was out there, and it was out there on major platforms, I mean, it almost makes me think, guys, like, I mean, if wasn't this bound to happen? I mean, if a mistaken tweet went out, because in theory, this is really what it all stemmed from, and I'm not pointing fingers, but a mistaken tweet went out, and 2 weeks later, we're having a Saturday night powwow about whether or not this industry is going to exist anymore. I mean, the fact that it only took that for it to happen, it's kind of a scary thought, because ultimately that's what it is.
Yeah, it's very scary, and I think I am in the same boat as, I'll speak for, I'm assuming most of the people on the panel when I say this. I always thought in DFS there would be a day like this, where the industry would have to prove itself, where we'd be facing some sort of government pushback, where there'd be people questioning the industry as a whole. But I think I always assumed that the sites had everything lined up, ready to go ahead and go to battle and squash it right away. And I think most people were in the same boat as myself in that thinking. And not saying the sites aren't doing a lot. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but I just really thought if this ever came in question, the sites would be ready and they'd pounce on it and it would be squashed immediately. And that might not be the case.
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't. I think the delay was part of the problem here. But moving forward, I mean, I think we're all in agreement that there are, upwards of, millions of people. FanDuel, I know, touts so 1 million people have won money playing on FanDuel. So, you've got a lot of people playing the industry, and all of us have voices. And, Justin, you kind of got the ball rolling with that letter, which was really well done. I put a forum post out on RotoGrinders and kind of did state by state, labeled it in terms of who you might want to contact. And I did get some really good news, encouraging news from FanDuel right before we actually went on air today. That actually, starting at 11 o'clock, they're going to have a landing page. They're going to have a page for people to be able to go to that is going to direct them right to the people who are making these decisions. And this is going to be something that I have a feeling that they, and I would have to think DraftKings will be doing the same, would be to let their customers know. Because I know there's that side where, do you really want everybody to know? Because there's that fear of, oh no, what's happening here? Why am I getting this email from FanDuel? But I think at this point in time, it's absolutely necessary. Justin, speak to a little bit about that. And by the way, as soon as we have it, we'll blast it out. But again, take advantage of the time right now to send these things out, because they're only going to help. There's no way it's going to hurt anything.
Yeah. The first thing when I saw yesterday, I saw the news article from one of the local news stations that the Illinois Gaming Commission was looking into DFS, and it was really the first thing that hit me. I'm going to contact the Attorney General if that's where they're referring stuff, and I've had some dealings with the Attorney General's office, obviously, in my job as an accountant, so I kind of knew how to access the page to contact them, and figured, I've got at least somewhat of a base of followers, and I'll try to get the word out, and obviously we'll reciprocate the help for anybody that needs it in their state. And it was really the first thing I thought to do. I kind of wish I would have waited maybe an hour to write the letter. I'm for the most part happy with what I wrote, but if I had to go back and write it again, I'd probably remove a couple sentences where maybe I was a little bit harsh about the state government. And not that it wasn't my true feelings; it is my true feelings. But one of the ways maybe to lose your reader is to bash them a little bit. So I would encourage anybody maybe that hasn't written yet. Maybe don't be quite as harsh. Obviously, I posted my sample on Twitter if you need to get some ideas for what to write, whether you're writing to Illinois or you're writing to a different state. It certainly can't hurt, like Dan said, to have your voice heard, and I'm happy that maybe the sites are coming out with a platform for people to do that, because it will at least help people realize that there are jobs at stake, and the fact that the sites are issuing tax reporting forms, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah,
it's huge, and I think if you're in a state that doesn't have a state income tax, maybe not so much, for somebody like you, Dan, down in Florida, or Dean, Nevada doesn't have a state income tax either, right? So those two states, maybe not as much of a deal, but with Illinois, we're paying taxes on our winnings, and our state is broke as a joke right now. So why are they trying to take another source of tax revenue away just so that the Gaming Commission can be happy? I'm not going to drive down to the gas machine or the gas station and play the slots if you take DFS away. That's not going to be the first thing that I do. So hopefully a lot of people write them, and at least we can have some say in the final outcome.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the future a little bit, guys. In terms of regulation, Dean, what form does that come in? I mean, we talked about from a national standpoint. I still think it's a process that would take a long period of time, because honestly, the only way I see that happening on a national scale, to be fully honest with you, is they get rid of the PASPA law, They allow sports betting, and they roll daily fantasy into it. I think all of us would agree. Nobody has any bones about there being sports betting in this country, right? I mean, are we all okay with that?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think it's just a matter of whether or not, this process, like, how long is that going to take? And if there is regulation in that sense, we're looking at a situation where the government could put limits on how much you can play in a single day. They could obviously stick their nose in terms of, the size of the tournaments and whatnot. And some people might think those are actually good things to happen. For other people, potentially not. I think we're in agreement where we'd rather have regulation full bore than have no daily fantasy at all. Any idea,
Yes.
Dean, what form that might come in?
Yeah, for sure. I'm on board with regulation. I think most people are as well. A lot of people have brought into question the integrity of sites because of things have happened, and there's always. Nothing is 100% foolproof. Like the Pentagon. The Pentagon. I'm sure people can crack the code there. I suppose. I don't want to say I'm sure, but you know what I'm saying. So if you regulate things, it gives it some sense of safety, and people. It has to be a trusted industry going forward because of all these allegations being raised. The people have to believe it's an honest game, and we can get into why they think it's not or whatever, and some people are just never going to be persuaded, which is perfectly fine. They're entitled to their opinion. But just for the credibility purposes, and a lot of people are trying to use this platform as like, well, okay, now we have to fix this, and this. It's like I think things like scripting need to be addressed. Absolutely. I'm not for scripting. Yeah. I think most people I talk to are not for scripting. I just don't think that's the first thing we need to talk about. I see people in the chat talking about it. Mass multi-entry. I'm not for it. Again, that's not my number one platform. That's not the most important thing for me today. The most important thing for me today is getting everybody a chance to play. Isn't that the number one priority? And then, okay, we can tinker with things. We all have our ideas as to what makes this, the best possible game. But I just want to address, I see people in the chat talking about why aren't we talking about scripting? Why aren't we talking about this? Isn't, making it a legal game for everybody to enjoy and, make a living off of, isn't that the most important thing today?
Yeah, but I do think that scripting is we as the industry have allowed scripting to be a part of the narrative. In my home fantasy football league, before the season even started, a guy asked Kitchen, can you hook us up with some information for DraftKings as far as lineups go? And two other guys immediately came in and pointed to articles and said, you can't win because it's all robots, and pointed to the max salary article. It is a narrative that is out there, and it is a dangerous narrative. And now even with the Drew Dinkmeyer suit, you've got Drew Dinkmeyer, who I joked on Twitter yesterday, cannot even set up dual monitors. I love him, but he is the most non-tech savvy guy you've ever met. And he's in the suit that claims scripting, sniping software, spiders, and other stuff. So I think to just ignore scripting might be a little bit careless. I wouldn't have a problem in the world if they did away with any sort of third-party software programs. Have I used them in the past? Yeah. Are they but they haven't been a mainstay of what I do, and I don't think it takes away from the industry to take them away. I think scripts do way more harm for the industry than they do good.
Can they be policed?
Do we all agree with that, by the way? Is anybody pro-scripting?
No, and just to add on to Dave's point there, a lot of the backlash here recently has been a lot of people are claiming that a new user comes onto a website and they don't necessarily have a chance at winning. Without scripting, that argument is completely squashed immediately. There's just no argument against it. I mean, a new user absolutely has a fair chance of winning without scripting. With scripting, there's some gray area there when you have people putting in 500 entries and the ability to go ahead and edit them at the snap of a finger. That is a huge advantage. A new user knows absolutely nothing about that whatsoever. So I think part of the argument and part of the point we try to prove moving forward is, a new user coming onto the site for the first time does indeed have a fighting chance. And scripting is the first step, and the next step, I think, is the payout structure of these GPPs.
Let's just stay on that scripting topic for a second, because I know a lot of people it's a hot button one, and obviously we offer the entry script here at Roto Grinders. We make no bones about it. We offer it because we can, and there's demand for it. But I also want it to be 100% known that if the site said no scripting, we would have zero pushback on our end to keep it. Yes, we've poured a lot of development into it, but we fully can get behind whatever policy they have moving forward. Some people will say, I know people have made the accusation that we were behind it, that this was our this was an RG thing. It's absolutely not true whatsoever. This is something that we built after the fact, and I think the question is this, though, guys: if DraftKings or FanDuel say offered a tool very similar to what we built here at Roto Grinders, and I'm sure they could, would that satisfy you guys in saying that everybody's got the ability to use it, the tool is embedded on the site? Is that something, Dave, that you are okay with?
Sure. I mean, I would be. I'm okay with scripts right now. Like, I'm okay with their existence, and I understand the stuck between a rock and a hard place, and RG feel like they had to offer it. You guys are the #1 site as far as daily fantasy goes, and so not offering it puts you at a disadvantage. The same thing for Fantasy Insiders. Like, we had been working on a script just because from a business side you have to offer it. From just a playing side, if the sites did offer a script, I don't think they would, from just talking to people. If they offered a script, I would be okay with it, but then again, you get into the aspect of no skill. Like, you want this to be a skill-based game, and so if people say, well, I can just go on the site and click a button and automatically enter 50 lineups in there, and that's a lottery ticket. So I guess that would be my point, as far as it wouldn't create an unfair advantage, but it would seem like it would reduce the skill argument for people that are looking for an edge to take a mile.
Yeah, and a lot of people said they're not detectable. I don't know enough about this stuff to comment and say whether it is or it isn't. The only comparison that I've known of was, I guess, with Ticketmaster. It was a fairly common practice that they figured out a way to prevent it. But
CAPTCHA?
I don't know. Did you know about that, Dean?
I just know what a CAPTCHA is on Ticketmaster, and I can't even read them. It takes me like 3 times to actually, read it and type it in. They make it more difficult, but I suppose that more difficult is better than too easy, I guess.
Yeah. So, but I'll say this much. I mean, I don't think the legal threat today that we're having is script induced, but I do believe that moving forward in terms of the way the industry is looked at from outsiders, there's a huge argument to be made to be getting rid of it. So I think that's important to make that clarity, because I don't think, in terms of where we are today, has necessarily a lot to do with that. But that's my personal thoughts. So
yeah.
All right. Where else?
Dan, before we move on, the chat is asking us to clarify what scripting is. Some people are not aware of it, so if you can give them a quick summary.
Well, there's several types of scripts. I think the one that we obviously offer here, Roto Grinders, is connected with our lineup builder, so it allows you to enter a bunch of lineups. And on DraftKings, it puts it into the My Lineups page. On FanDuel, it'll actually enter them into the contest for you. So basically, you favorite all the players you want, and there's a lot of, obviously, the lineup builders becoming, quite the tool these days. You can, put the exact amount of exposure you want to players and do certain correlations we're working on. But then basically it makes the lineups for you. You can go in and edit them, and then it'll also load them up over on DraftKings or on FanDuel. And then there's the other script that obviously was brought to light not too long ago, and that's about whether or not people are using tools to pick up head-to-head games, which I think we are in all agreement, which under zero circumstances should ever be allowed. And again, this is one of those things where smart people have always said, you can build things that the sites would not be able to notice that it was a script. But according to a lot of people, and obviously we saw the issue not that long ago take place with it, and it's a potential issue for the industry. Let's bring in CSU Ram live from Bristol. What's going on, Pete?
Oh, just got out of the war room watching some college football with the baseball tonight, guys. So that was fun.
Let's talk about scripting real quick, because I know you've got strong opinions on that as well, and we were just kind of explaining to the audience about it. You're a high-volume guy. You play as much as the top 1% of the players in the industry. Give me your thoughts on it, about scripting, whether it's the multi-entering version or the head-to-head scooping version, which has really kind of been brought to light here with a couple of people in the last few weeks.
Yeah, so the scooping stuff just has to go, obviously. I think any software that enables you to pick up any sort of action or target any players is just awful for the industry and should not be allowed by the sites at all. And I think for the most part that's been the case. Obviously there's a recent mishap here where there's big miscommunication, and even I think it's unethical to have it, but the site should absolutely clamp down on that. The tournament stuff is a little tougher for me. I think that there's definitely merit to making it easy for people to throw in a bunch of lineups, but at the same time, it's also very intimidating for new players coming in, knowing that these people are firing in hundreds of lineups with a computer program. So basically, where I stand with that is if they're going to allow a bunch of lineups to come in from a lineup builder or something like that, it should be a tool designed by the site.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think, I mean, if there is going to be scripting for the tournaments, and it's a tool that's available to everybody, it makes sense. But I think another way to kind of eliminate a problem is maybe limit the number of entries that people can put in. I mean, if somebody's able to go ahead and gobble up 10% of the overall entries in a tournament, that's a big problem. I think if you can limit it, whether it be based on a percentage of the overall tournament or just a flat number, I mean, whatever works. I don't have the answer to that, but I think some sort of limitations should be in place.
Justin, moving forward here, I mean, you're a big multi-entry guy, so I think I got to ask you this. I mean, it was especially in baseball. That's kind of your thing. I mean, you even acknowledge it. Like this is where you've had a lot of success at. Would that bother you if they put more stricter limits on it? And on top of that, like, I mean, we're at a point where, do you think maybe the competition between the sites becomes less important? Because I think that's really what drove the games to get as big as they are, and which obviously has driven the multi-entry to be to the level that it is. I mean, FanDuel and DraftKings are established. If we get through, the legal issues here, these two companies aren't going anywhere, and I don't necessarily know if it's 1A or if it's 1 and 2 or if it's 1A and 1B. I mean, your thoughts on the competition angle and about multi-entry, because you're somebody who does it a lot.
Yeah. So to the site's comment there. I mean, I reached out to a lot of people yesterday with the whole Illinois thing. I'm probably one of the higher volume players in the state, and so I reached out to a lot of the people in the know at the big sites and said, if there's anything that you think I can do in this state, let me know. And I got a couple of responses that said, and I'm not going to name names, but you're going to see a united effort here from DraftKings and FanDuel, and I think they've kind of come to realize that at this point in time, their little competition for who's going to be number one is of not the greatest importance right now, because would you rather both be in existence 5 years from now, or go down swinging as to who's going to be number one? Obviously, we know what's going to take precedence there. So I definitely think that that's on the back burner for now, and I am confident that the sites believe that based on what I've heard from a few people. So that angle I'm comfortable with. I think you're going to see FanDuel and DraftKings work together to try to get through this. And if you had concerns about that, I would at least feel comfortable saying that we may not know what's going on behind the scenes, but obviously they're trying to do something. They're not just sitting on their hands at this point. yes, was there maybe a little bit of a delay, and yes, was the bickering back and forth between the sites maybe a problem in the past, but I don't think that's the biggest issue now. So that's my thoughts on that. And then as far as the multi-entry goes, it really wouldn't bother me that much. I mean, if you're talking some of these tournaments that allow 150 or 200 entries, I rarely, if ever, max enter those. Now I do put a lot of entries in, and would I rather be able to do it? Sure, but if it's going to be limited for the sake of DFS being better in the long run, I'm all for it. I'm not going to. Anything that allows everyone to play this game and enjoy it is what I'm for. So if multi-entry gets limited in the future, so be it. I will work within whatever rules are given to me, and I'm not going to complain about that. And the state that I'm in right now, I just want to be able to play tomorrow. So
I hear you. I think we're a lot of us are kind of in that situation. And Pete, even today, I was reading that. Colorado, we're talking about, maybe not the biggest state, but in terms of daily fantasy players, we're talking about some of the very highest volume ones in that state. And I just saw that the Colorado, I don't know if it's their gaming control board or what, but are going to be looking at daily fantasy. Is this something that you've had a chance to look at? And, what are you going to do moving forward? Because obviously that's huge for you.
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to try to do everything I can to unite people in Colorado and send over whatever I can to the politicians and the gaming, the gaming board, I believe is what it is. Obviously, I've contacted all the players that I know in Colorado, and hopefully we'll be able to, at least make an impression and talk to them about it. So I've reached out to some media outlets that have contacted me, and I'm just trying to be as positive and pitch the benefits of daily fantasy. So it'd be devastating if that happened, but certainly I think any state that has any sort of casino presence is at risk right now, because obviously the casinos want to see it shut down because they have incentive to see it shut down, and they smell blood in the water right now. So that's basically how I feel about it.
They have incentive to shut it down. Is the incentive what? What is the incentive? Because I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, is it they think that
I can go to the gas station down the street and play the slots with my...
I was going to say, is that the mentality for real?
I don't think it's that simplistic, but I think it's part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
And Pennsylvania's another state, too, which I tried to get Tip and Pick on. He'll be on Grinders Live in the morning. And they're going to actually, I guess, have a vote as soon as Wednesday on this. But theirs is a little bit different, Mike. They want actually people to play daily fantasy in the casinos. They don't want to get rid of it. They want you to walk to the casino to play. Now, you live near Detroit, and I've been to Windsor plenty of times. I don't know, Windsor?
Yeah, all the time.
I have to say the strip clubs in Windsor are way better than the ones in Detroit.
Daniel, that boy.
I was young. It's been a while. It's been a while.
They certainly get the job done over in Windsor if you're a strip club attendee.
Hey, yeah, and when you were 18, you can. It's 18 in Canada, and it's 21.
There's 19.
Is this Tommy G After Dark again?
No. Sorry, let's get back to the point. Would you go to a casino to play daily fantasy hoop?
No, I mean no, I wouldn't. The thing that I think is most appealing to DFS as a whole is the ability you can essentially sit at home in your undies behind your computer and build lineups. I mean, that's a huge...
I don't want that picture of Dean in his undies playing daily fantasy, please.
Wait, why me? Why am I being singled out? Because
you haven't talked,
just like a dream?
You haven't talked in a while, so I needed to get your reaction. So
yeah,
continue.
I just don't see how a DFS industry that revolves around people going to the casino to play would be appealing whatsoever and successful at all. I just don't think it's something that appeals to the DFS community at this point. And I just this big push right now. I personally, I could be wrong, but I think a lot of it has to do with the casinos. They see this huge gaming industry, I guess you can call it, and they're not getting their piece of the pie, and I really do believe that they're behind a lot of this negativity.
Yeah,
game.
they're not getting a piece of the pie, and they're naive enough to think that, oh, we'll just offer these. That's what the Colorado board
That's what
says.
it
Like,
is.
we want to offer these games ourselves. We want
Yeah.
the people that have to come up to play them, and they don't understand how it even works.
No, and that's the problem. They really think that them offering games in the casino would appeal to DFS players, and I'm willing to bet they think they would be just as successful as a FanDuel or DraftKings, and just
Maybe if
simply
I
not the
had
case.
if I had one right next door to my house, maybe I'd go. But I'm not going to drive 45 minutes to go throw a
Yeah.
lineup in.
I mean,
And that's
they're
where
go ahead, Dave. Go ahead. Yeah.
that's where the onus, I think, is a little bit on the sites and on the FSTA, to be honest, to help educate, to come up with something. We have a landing page now. By the way, there's a landing page, fanduel.com/takeaction is the site
There
that
you
you want to go through. But you have a landing page, Freedom for All, or whatever the FSTA site was, to educate people that wanted to play in new sports. Well, you almost need a site, a landing page to help educate some of these lawmakers, to really show them what it is, and not only that, but like personalize it, show that there are actual people behind it, that it's a game of skill, to have all sorts of documents on one site that you could point people towards. And on the other side, the sites need to do a better job just as far as instead of competing with one another. I think it's time for the whole industry just to take a collective breath, like you said, Dan, and not compete with one another. Maybe get together and say, we're going to limit multi-entry contests to 25. You have the whole collusion thing, which I think is what people kind of worry about as far as sites kind of getting together to see what the rake is, all that other stuff. But as far as like basic guidelines to self-police, it seems like the industry has been one step behind all of this, and I think it's time for some proactive thought so that we can get in front of this and start kind of policing ourselves, and as much as we can put ourselves behind a bulletproof glass with regulation light, as they're calling it.
Just something I would like to bring up. A lot of people obviously listening might go ahead and contact their politicians. And I think your idea is great, Dave, by the way, to come up with a standardization, some sort of letterton form, or a place that these politicians can go to understand the game, or we somehow present them with this information. But in the short term, when people do go ahead and contact their congressmen, their senators, what I know, Justin, your letter was great, and I don't know if everybody that's listening or watching has had the opportunity to read it. But what are some things that people should be saying in these letters or conversations that they do have with congressmen or senators or whatever it may be?
And real quick too, just to spiral, I think that, and I'm supposed to talk to Peter Shanky at with the FSTA RotoWire on Monday. So I really am curious too. What is the best way to do it? Is it just signing these online petitions? Is it personal letters? Is it phone calls? Is it emails? Like, I'm not a grassroots guy. Okay, big shock there. So I've never gone through this before. I tried to reach out to a couple of guys before to come on with us, and had a few people, decline on it who have experience in this. And I think that's something that I really want to learn more about, because, how many emails do these lawmakers get in a day? Like 500,000? I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it more effective to do the handwritten note? I mean, I don't even know if I could do it. It's been so long since I've done it. But that's an aspect that I hope that people who have experience in that can talk a little bit more about, because I don't know, and I don't know if anybody here does.
But on some level, you have to have some personalization within it, though, because if you want somebody to read what you're writing and take it seriously, it can't be boilerplate. I mean, where everyone's writing the same thing, and that's the easiest way to get your emails deleted and shoved off, if everyone's sending the same thing in. So, I don't have any more experience than the next guy at that sort of thing, but if you say, just be honest and mean what you say, and send something that comes from the heart, and you're more likely to get somebody to read it. Now, if you're completely bashing them and everything, like I said, I think maybe I was just a tad too harsh in my letter, but you can't have everybody send in this template from from somewhere in there. That's not going to get you anywhere. But as far as snail mail versus email versus any other form of communication, I mean, as long as you're sending something, I think you're being positive, being proactive a little bit about it. So.
Another talking point in the chat right now, a lot of people think that, there are a lot of other issues that are going to kind of come to light within daily fantasy. And I think that we can go forth and say, like, isn't the point of trying to bring in, is there like a third-party regulatory body that could be built or made and brought in to police daily fantasy, like, immediately? Because ultimately, I think, Pete, maybe you could speak to this a little bit more. It just feels like the longer we wait, the more stuff that's going to come out. And I know that FanDuel and DraftKings are doing their own kind of investigations and have their own third parties. But until that actual R word, that in terms of regulation, is out there, I almost wonder, like, there is a point to be made. Like, maybe we could skate by this go-around on some level, but the mainstream media is out, like you said, out for blood. Like, blood is in the water, and if there's any slip-up anywhere, whether it's something that's really bad or something that's not really bad but might look bad from the outside, they're going to pounce on it. So how do we avoid that from happening, I guess, Pete, is my question.
I wish I knew the answer to that. I think obviously the sites are really hyper aware of what's going on right now and are doing everything they can, to bring in the right people to make sure they're coming off as best as possible. But we do face a tremendous challenge right now, and that basically because of what's recently happened and how much DraftKings, FanDuel have been out there on in terms of their media presence. Everyone wants to talk about DraftKings and FanDuel because it's been so prevalent on TV. So because of that, all these stories are amazing for all these writers because they get a ton of clicks and they get a ton of traction on all their articles. So that's going to be a constant going forward, and we have to try to do everything we can to put out a positive spin on things. And I think the sites are doing a good job. And as players, I think the biggest thing we can do is just kind of band together and try to push things forward instead of just calling people out for these other things that are going on. But we'll see. I'm definitely nervous about what's happening, but hopefully we can all band together and get something positive done.
A couple of things I want to chime in. I'm interacting with the chat as well. Good. How much do you think the negativity of the commercials have had? Because we're sick of them. Like, the thing is, like, when I first saw like a DraftKings commercial or FanDuel commercial, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's Peter Jennings. That's the guy who's in that box right there in the Google Hangout, and it was awesome. But when there's a diminishing value of returns, and we see you for the billionth time. I'm sick of you. My mom is sick of seeing you. And no offense, nothing personal, not you personally, but you know what I mean. I feel like this is part of the backlash, and we hate it, and we love the industry. We love DFS, and we hate the commercials. Imagine the people that already don't care about it, and then they see it excessively. And, what is the ESPN deal with DK is $150 million, whatever it may be, and they don't seem to be going away anytime soon. Can they just not get out of it? Is it a long-term commitment, obviously? Like, how much regret do you think the sites have on that, and how much negativity do you think that is leading towards, people just want to hate it because of the commercials? Am I not correct in that?
This is like my one rant I want to go on. The other question, sorry, but this is like the ultimate catch-22, and I think this is just a societal thing. It's a venture capital thing that all kind of led together with a catch-22. So these sites, FanDuel and DraftKings, were so hyper-competitive with each other, raising so much money that they basically had to spend this money, right? They raised $275 million and $300 million individually, so over $500 million this summer. Part of that raise was committed to spending. So because of that, we had more spend by these companies than basically any other company in the entire country. And I think that built a ton of ill will with a lot of people. I mean, we saw tweets from people like Chipper Jones and other people just saying how much they hate these DraftKings and FanDuel commercials.
Jones.
It's true. and the sites really were trying to like thread the needle here by trying to grow so fast and not have anything blow up in their face because they had to spend the money because of the money that they raised. And that's just the nature of like the VC market right now too. I mean, these VCs have seen such huge explosions from companies like Twitter and Uber and all these other things that they're all trying to catch the next unicorn, and they're willing to dump tons of money. So I think it's like a culmination of all this societal stuff going on, especially in the startup world, and then basically DraftKings and FanDuel having all this money that they had to spend, and I don't think they were ready for what was going to come from it. And it's certainly, I don't blame them for trying to be aggressive. That's what's gotten them where they are, but it's definitely the reason I think we're having all these problems. I mean, if we didn't have this huge commercial push, there's no way this story with Ethan gets as big as it does, and we don't see all this negative press from everywhere.
To tangent on this just a little bit, it's worse for us because we're watching sports all the time. I mean, the hardcore DFS players are watching sports all the time, and the people that don't, say the people that maybe just watch football on Sundays, they're at least not exposed to them all the time. Now, I'm certainly not defending the commercial blitz or anything like that. I agree with what you guys are saying, but it is worse on our end because we are literally exposed to them pretty much every time we're watching TV because most of us are passionate and watch sports all the time. So it is worse on our end, I think, than it is in society as a whole. Those of us that are, so focused in on DFS and sports, it literally just seems like it's never ending. But the people that maybe only watch sports occasionally or watch their favorite team, it's not as bad for them, I think, as it is. So, I mean, I think this is a problem, but I think we are exposed to it so much that it seems worse to us than it actually is.
No,
I
Bradley C's fault. That guy is a fraud. And these commercials, these FanDuel commercials, are absolutely terrible. And if you have to spend money, you need to focus it on being entertainment-based. I'm tired of seeing the FanDuel Bradley C commercials. I'm tired of seeing the Peter with champagne on him and everybody else. I like the Ed Norton series of commercials because it focuses on the entertainment side. If you're going to have to spend all this money, you need to invest in some decent campaigns. So I'm glad that DraftKings shed the frat boy, whatever they call the frat boy advertising.
The sock puppets.
Milk a two-legged goat, and got into the Ed Norton style commercials. But there needs to be, if you know that you're spending all this money on TV, you need to start investing in more and more different television commercials, because there is a point where Justin said, like, everybody doesn't watch sports all the time. Well, if they do, like, if this is their 1 3-hour period to watch sports, they don't want to see over and over again these same commercials. So,
yeah, and I think it's a good point, but I think a lot of that also stemmed from FanDuel. This is more than they've ever spent before. And it has always worked for them in the past. I mean, it's been successful. They have grown their business using that exact same model, and they didn't think about, well, if we multiply what we're doing by 3, is it still going to work and be that much more effective, or is there going to be pushback from that? And I think that's the problem they kind of ran into. And DraftKings, like Pete said, they're on the hook to spend an insane amount of money on ESPN and Fox Sports, and then obviously trying to push, their other games like golf and MMA. I mean, they're just obviously going to be everywhere, and I totally believe that never in their wildest dreams did they think that the commercials would be part of the reason that they would be under the microscope like they are. And I don't know if there's regret by it. I mean, I asked Jason about it when I interviewed him before, and he said, we were 9x the number of players we had a year ago. They obviously are effective, but on the flip side, if it's going to damage your business, I think there's definitely going to be a little bit of buyer's remorse. Anything else, Dean?
Well, the other part of that, the commercials are kind of misleading in that, you're probably not going to be Scott Hansen. You're more likely to beat Bradley C in his bicycle. You're going to play your friends every single week in FanDuel. Every week, I can beat my friends on FanDuel. Like, that is much more likely than to be Scott Hansen to deposit $30 and take down $2 million. That said, you're buying airtime, and it's not like Jenny Craig says, here's the before picture, I'm 280 pounds, here's the after, I'm 290, which is more realistic than actually being 140.
Yeah,
like, why would you advertise that? So, like, it's a kind of a catch-22, but like you guys were talking about, the entertainment side of it. Like, I've heard people suggest, you say you deposit $20 on FanDuel or DraftKings or whatever, and you're playing in a GPP that night, and it's an entertainment value to it. If you win, if you lose, either way, the games you plan on watching that evening are much more exciting and much more fun, and it's an entertainment product. And hey, it's awesome if you win money, but if you lose, your sports watching experience was enhanced Just like, hey, going to the movie theater and having some popcorn costs you $20, staying home and watching, I don't know, the Orlando Magic take on the Timberwolves, that cost you $20 too, and you had a good time either way, and maybe you win some money.
I think that's a really good point you brought up there, the direction that the commercials are actually leading the players. They're obviously marketing towards these big tournaments, the $1 million tournaments. Hey, you deposit $20 into our site, you can turn that into $2 million. Chances of that happening, very, very slim. Chances of a new player actually turning that $20 into anything besides $0 is very, very slim. So it's just a bad experience right off the bat. And I mean, I think I'm not alone in saying this, but any one of my friends or family that has heard of DraftKings or heard of FanDuel, the first thing they talk about is these big, massive $1 million tournaments where they're putting $20 in and turning it into $1 million. No one's talking about, hey, let me put in $20 and play somebody heads up and turn it into 36, or let me play somebody for $5 and turn it into 9. Everyone's talking about these big tournaments.
But to that point, why do you think that is, Hoop?
Because that's the
draw.
And
Exactly.
you can still do some of that as far as just highlighting different tournaments. That I think, though, to what people are kind of frustrated about is that some of these issues have been brought up for the past 4 years, and one of those issues is the deposit bonus. I had a friend call me on Sunday, and he was upset. He said, I deposited $50, and I just found out that I don't get that $50.
Yeah.
And like I understand from the marketing angle, but at some point you have to take a look at long-term versus short-term.
Yeah.
And we have to start focusing on the longevity, and that means removing stuff that's misleading and shady. And so players, employees playing on other sites, anything that could be wrong, anything that people could look at as being shady, we just need to get in front of it.
Yeah, perception is reality these days. Like I think Jason, in the interview I did with him, mentioned optics, and I think that is the most important thing moving forward is how does it look to people who are not necessarily plugged in? Like, yeah, we all play tons of volume. For us to get a $500 bonus and it have a 5% drip rate, we're going to get through it. We're going to save that. We're going to get that $500 back. But it is very, very misleading to new players who first come in. And, I'm with you, Dave. I've had my brother-in-law, first time he played, he was like, what's going on here? This isn't really, it says I'm supposed to get this, and I'm not getting it. So there is a lot of that misleading going on. We have a Beard who joined the fray here, Crazy Gaby. Okay, concert of the day. What was the concert of the day?
It's actually not a concert I'm at for myself. I took my brothers to a death metal concert in Cleveland that I promised I'd take them 2 months ago. So I'm in a car in downtown Cleveland in a parking lot right now, trying not to get shot while we talk. So.
Well, if it happens, I don't know. We've got it on video.
I was going to say the nice thing about it would be the ratings would go through the roof.
Yeah. Well, let's hope you stay safe there, Gaby. Add something to this conversation. Again, you kind of coming in a little bit late. We've touched up. We're probably in our last 10 minutes before we get out of here. We'll get out at 10:30 Eastern. So we've kind of covered a lot of different bases. But you're somebody who's been very opinionated about the industry in total, and you've been around for a while. Give us some points that you think is important for us moving forward, and for us to kind of get through here. Hopefully, this next couple of weeks, which again could be pretty rough for a lot of people. Potentially.
Yeah, so I don't want to take up too much time here. You guys have already probably hit most of the issues, but I thought Dave did a great job highlighting probably what's my biggest concern, which is the longevity of this industry. I think, I don't know if you guys have talked about it yet, but I think it was a massive mistake to approach this industry from the start as though it were online poker 2.0 instead of just maybe a better version, more instant gratification of season-long fantasy sports. And so I understand some of the appeal is winning a lot of money that you can't win in season-long fantasy sports, but at the same time, I think the longevity aspect has to be anchored towards the season-long experience. not the online poker experience, which I think if that taught us anything, we saw that the model that was created for sites like PokerStars and Full Tilt were built to fail. And I hate seeing the industry going down that same path. And I'm hoping this can be an inflection point where all of us, whether we're operating a site, writing a blog, or anywhere in between, use this as an opportunity to get back to our roots a little bit more and really think about the experience for every player, whether it's a $5 bankroll or a $5 million bankroll. So that way, both of those bankrolls will still be here 10 years from now.
I love the weekly games on Draft Street when they had them back in the day. Talk about
Yeah,
you did.
about
We loved everything on Draft Street.
Bring
it back.
Draft Street.
The reason why you liked it, Justin, is because of changes, and you would take advantage of the Draft Street pricing algorithm.
No, I'm not trying to talk about that. My point aside, they got no traction. Nobody gravitated towards them. Everyone in this society wants the instant gratification and the big payouts, and that just kind of rolled up upon itself. As the industry grew, and it just became a train, an unstoppable train, and now all of a sudden that train has hit the skids and it's going the other way. And
you know where we're seeing that today, Justin, is with a lot of these Monday night, Thursday night games, and Saturday or Sunday night, Monday night games. Which Hoop, as somebody who is played daily fantasy as a pro. I mean, we can all agree that that's not the essence of daily fantasy, I don't think, are 2-game slates in sports.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of it, don't get me wrong, but as somebody that does this professionally and as my only source of income, I need to look at every slate that's available out there, and I need to take advantage of things any way I can. But if they got win away with 2-game slates, and I think the biggest issue with the 2-game slates is the GPPs.
The overlap. But you're running $300,000 guaranteed tournaments on a 2-game slate where even you're going to have like 50 people with identical lineups sometimes win, and that's terrible. That's not good.
What happens with those though? They fill.
I know they do.
That's the demand is there. As terrible of a game it is, the demand is there.
That's what I'm saying is. That's what I'm. And that's what sickens me. It's like we talked about the instant gratification. That's all it is. There's so much of it. It goes above and beyond. Where I honestly think you got to dial it back a little bit because it takes away from the game itself. That's not a good daily fantasy game. It's not.
Yeah.
The new players love it. They love that game.
I know they do. It's a terrible game.
They love it.
Well, because it's starting now. That's why they love any game starting now.
Yeah, well, they love any primetime, anything that features a primetime game. They're in.
Yeah.
So
you get a lot of players in one game. You get an easier roster to make, which again, maybe that's part of Dan's argument, and you get instant gratification. I'll tell you, those games are the primetime ones are the most popular head-to-head slates by far.
Yep. And if you lost in the early slate, you can just wipe those losses away. Don't worry about them. We got a new slate. Start clean.
Or Justin.
Yeah.
That's the new commercial sales pitch right there.
Let's not put that one on the next ad, please.
That's the mindset, though. That's the mindset.
That's what people are doing.
So I just want to throw this out there. The chat is talking about the other shoe is still going to drop. What is the other shoe? What are we not talking about?
Well, I think the other shoe is what people or what is found out in either these government investigations or these third-party audits. I think we'd probably be naive to sit here to think like, what happened with the Ethan tweet is the worst thing that's going to happen in daily fantasy. I think that would be a pretty naive take to have. But to sit here and speculate and say this is it, that is it, I don't know. But the bottom line is the sites have to be proactive moving forward to make sure it doesn't happen. And they've got to look at things in a completely different light than they ever had before. And, I think the question is, if a third-party audit comes out and says X, Y, and Z did this, how is the public going to take that? Like, how is the New York Times going to run with that? Is it going to be another news cycle of DFS? Or is it, hey, they discovered there's a problem here, they're taking steps to prevent it from happening moving forward? Is the narrative change at all based on that?
I think the sites control that narrative. I think for what they're spending on high-profile, independent people to come in and give a review, I think part of that review is also giving advice on what to do and to be proactive. I don't expect this to be like where these people come in and they say, yeah, everything checks out, all good. Like, they're going to make recommendations. You're going to see stricter controls. You're going to see more things, and so it's up to the sites to basically say, here's what happened, here's how we're going to fix it going forward. And beyond that, there's not much you can do.
I think there's one thing that needs to be talked about before we get out of here. I just want to make sure it gets addressed, and
Okay.
it's something that hit me today. And I guess maybe I'll pose this to you, Dan, and you can go where you want with it. DraftKings within the last couple months removed the UIGEA language from their why it's legal page. Is that a concern to you? Do you think there's anything to that? I mean, for years. We've talked in this industry about it being legal because of UIGEA, and now that that language is gone from their terms of service page, and the Nevada gaming opinion was very critical of the UIGEA language. Is that an issue that you think might be a problem for the industry going forward?
I don't know. I would probably say no, just simply because I'd say 99% of the people who start playing daily fantasy don't even have a clue what that is, what that means. I think that, there's probably, talking about the legality of daily fantasy, they've all got lawyers who can speak to that way better than I can. So, I don't know. I mean, I think there's probably a reason why they did it. Maybe because they didn't want that to be the sole reason in terms of their sole argument as to why their game is viewed as legal. Because they've talked a lot about that the skill game on the state level is ultimately what they view as most important. So I don't know. I can't really speak to that, Justin. I think that's a question for people much smarter than me. Final thoughts.
Dan,
Yep.
I was going to say, if I could add one thing to
Sure.
the point that was being made earlier. For the past couple of years, like you mentioned, I have been one of the more outspoken people in terms of some of the practices that the sites have been using in terms of dealing with issues that players have brought up. And I don't even think at this point it's so much an issue of proving guilt as it is not being able to prove innocence. And that's really what I was always worried about, that we would end up in this place, because right now you have a public perception, which, right or wrong, fair or not, is leaning towards guilty. And even if you don't prove any guilt with the investigations that come out and the reports say, listen, there's no actual hard evidence that any information was used for anything, because we don't know, it's going to be just as damning if nothing can be said proving that no information was accessed. If it's just an ambiguous report one way or the other, the public is going to judge it as guilt either way. And that's really where I think we're at right now, which is hopefully there is something that logs every time somebody accesses anything in an account or anything. That's what I'm hoping we'll see, because I think that's the only thing that's really going to restore the public confidence in the short term at the least.
Well, it's 10:30, guys. It's time for us to call it a night, but I do want to point out a couple of things here. First off, FanDuel.com/takeaction. Check that out. It's their petition for basically promoting online fantasy sports to people in Washington, and obviously it's the first step towards, we think, obviously kind of a grassroots effort here to make sure that daily fantasy does stay legalized. At FanDuel, they've reached out to me again. I think in about 30 minutes or so, they're going to have another landing page, which is going to be even more specific on a state-by-state level. And if you are in one of these questionable states, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Florida, be on the lookout. They're going to reach out to you and let you know who you need to talk with, who you need to call, who you need to write. You can find it in our forums as well. We've got that pinned post. We'll continue to update that. But I urge you, and I think all of us do, to don't have the mentality that it won't help. Because here, I'll tell you one thing that won't help is you sitting on your ass. Okay? That won't help. Okay? There's zero chance of that helping. Even if it's just a little bit, that's better than nothing. Yes, there's going to be a lot of lobbying efforts done by FanDuel, DraftKings, hopefully the FSTA, and I think that this is probably one of the biggest weeks we will have in the future of daily fantasy. So we're certainly going to keep you up to speed on all that. Guys, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Soccer Dave, Fantasy Insiders, DK Analyst, we've got the Sunday Sweat Show. Are we doing that still, Dave? This week?
The Monday Night Sweat Show.
Monday Night Sweat Show.
No Sunday Hangout, but Monday Night Sweat Show still going on.
Okay, so Monday nights, and I gotta say, well, having Tom Crowley on when he won that $1 million was pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it was.
He didn't. It was like totally unexpected.
And Chipotle Attic and Big Papa Gates being brothers just blew my mind. So I did not see that one coming. So it was fun. But guys, I appreciate you having me. What you're doing is great. Everybody on this panel, I respect. And my biggest thing is, I said this earlier, be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Conspiracy theorists making accusations, that does nothing for the industry. If you're going to do something positive. And part of that is signing the petition, writing not just to your state's leaders, it's writing to everybody else as well. So this is the chance. This is like the crucial moment. This is the fourth quarter. This is crunch time for us.
Pete, any final words for all of our viewers out here?
Dave said he spoke so eloquently right there, and I couldn't say anything better than that. I think that we all need to band together more than anything. And I think attacking each other only hurts the industry. So if you love this industry, let's band together. Let's make our voices heard and contact everyone you can about how much you love this game and why it's so great. Okay, Dean. I'd invite you to Florida, buddy, but I don't know. It would be a short stay, potentially.
I've started the movement to get Dean to move to Columbus, by the way. He and I can podcast together, same room.
Oh, wow. There we go.
That's a hell
Just
of a
throwing it
sales
out
pitch
there.
I need a closer look up of you than I'm getting right now, actually.
Justin, again, thanks for the work you've already put forth in the letter that you published on Twitter. You can also find it in our forums at RotoGrinders. Hoop, this was your idea. I want to thank you for that. And we want to, he couldn't make it tonight, but Draft Cheat is another one who's been a very vocal guy, and he actually kind of suggested, he really wanted to talk about it, and I said, you know what, I think we need to do more than 15 minutes on Grinders Live in the morning, and unfortunately he couldn't make it here tonight, but you and him reached out to me about this, and I'm glad you did, because I think it's gone over well.
Yeah, I think that the main thing, the frustration from so many people is silence. A lot of people were hesitant to speak out on the issues. A lot of the sites were hesitant to speak out on the issues, and it's the fourth quarter, like Dave said. We all have to speak out. We all have to offer solutions. We all have to band together. A lot of people on Twitter and throughout the industry bashing others, accusing people of doing, wrong things in the industry. We all have to get on the same page. The sites have to get on the same page. The players need to get on the same page and do whatever we can proactively to squash this issue and essentially be able to continue playing the game that we all love so much and it has brought all of us together.
I think a lot of this too. Some people, and I'll be quick because I know we're trying to get out of here, but some people were right in calling this a couple of years ago, or bringing the issues to the forefront, and some people fought against it, and so that's kind of where this friction comes in. Look, if you pegged this 2 years ago, congratulations, great, good for you. There were missteps. The sites did things wrong, but coming at the angle of here are all the mistakes that I called 2 years ago does absolutely nothing going forward. So get out of here with that stuff, and let's be proactive moving forward. There's nothing that can change the past now, and I'm tired of seeing that crap, and that's just that's my final rant there.
There we go. You know what? We're gonna give STL the final rant. I love it, guys. Thank you so much for your time. We want to thank you for joining us here on this special edition here of Grinders Live. We'll be back tomorrow morning with some football talk for you, the 2 hours leading up until kickoff. Till then, have yourself a great Saturday night. Good luck in your Sunday contest. And one final just words of wisdom here. If you are playing in one of those maybe questionable states, use your FPP points this weekend. Like, just do it. Just use them all up. Don't leave them there. Dean, I know you like to hog them. You're probably regretting that.
I can't play at all. I'm already shut out.
I know. I'm saying, like, that's your biggest regret. You hoarded all those points. So
DK told me they're going to convert them to cash, though. I'm fairly certain that's what they said in an email.
Okay, well, that's good news. Well, anyway.
He's got 10 grand coming his way.
Money bags.
All right, guys. Thanks again. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on Grinders Live. Till then, we'll see you.